Hello, fellow wanderers. I'm Endry, and thank you for joining me as we wander through a bit more of the EQ Titan new player tutorial. In today's video, we're going to be going over moving around, zoning, and a few commands involved in all of that. So to start off, the most basic command for moving around is going to be /followon. One word. When you type that, everyone that's logged into your EQBCS server is going to start following your character. Now this is a little bit better than the follow command that works from the normal EQ client, because this one actually attempts to mimic your steps, though it does put a little bit of delay in the people following you. But as you can see, they're pretty good about keeping up with you and getting in the right spots. It's not perfect, and with larger groups they tend to spread out a lot, but it works pretty well. So, you got them following you. Well, what if you don't want them to? Pretty easy, /stop. And as you can see, I can move away, and they all stay there. All right. So what are other couple of ways you can move people around? Well, there's a /mtm, which is move to me. So you see, they're going to move over to you. Now let's go ahead and do a follow on here, and go over here. And let's say you're in this zone and you want out. And we don't want out quite yet, but to show off a few more of the zone types, I'm going to leave the zone real quick. So we've got this fellow here, Arius. If you hail him, he'll give you a quest, but also if you want to leave, he'll just say, hey, tell me to leave if you want to go. So one of the ways to deal with moving around, especially with the mysterious voices that you'll see around the area, is to bark at them. So let's bark, leave. And you can see here, we're now zoning. So bark lets you make all of the people that you are currently logged in with say a command to the character that you're talking to. So if I say leave, they will bark in their default channel, or say leave to that NPC. They'll target them, move to them, and say the command. Pretty useful. And you see here, it's going to take a while to load because I'm recording, and that always takes a little bit more processor power. A lot more. All right, so here we are. We are in Plane of Knowledge. Everyone's still here. And if you'll note, follow on persists through zoning. So it does work pretty well that way. Let's find another way we can zone. So let's see here. Let's head over to the Nexus real quick. And I will be doing a video in the near future going over the Plane of Knowledge, doing a little run through of it for people who have either not been there, if you were pre that era, or haven't been there in quite some time. So the POK stones here. Now, if you're in a group and you click this stone, you're going to see a pop-up box. As I say, would you like to move your entire group? Yes or no? This is one of the ways you can zone. Certain zone lines or certain objects, when you click them, are going to pop up this dialog box. Now, if you've got multiple characters, you're going to want to click that with multiple people. So let's go ahead and I'll show another command here. So while you're sitting in front of this stone, and it's not going to do much this time, but trust me, it does work in other situations. Do a /clickit, one word. You see, you're going to start scanning the object in front of you. And in fact, so is everyone around you. Now in this case, it doesn't really matter because I've already got the dialog box popped up here. But this is pretty useful when you're moving through push button triggers inside of zones and that sort of thing. As you can see, it does move you back and then move you forward to attempt to readjust to find the object. It moves you back a little more each time. Now, we've got the dialog box up here. What do we do with that? Well, if you just did a click it, all of your characters have now got this dialog box up here, usually the first person in each group who's actually going to click it. You can see here, it actually let them zone because I had the dialog box sitting a little bit too long. So normally what you would do, if you've got that nice little dialog box up there and you're, got all three of your groups or four of your groups, their group leaders are sitting there waiting. Let's move over here. How would you get them all to click it without tabbing over to them? Well, it's pretty simple. Let's go ahead and do a /yes. And what that's going to do is it's going to have anyone with a dialog box with a yes or no option up, click yes. It's not perfect. I've done it before and it's failed. If you want to make sure it works, just do a BCAA space /yes or /no. By the way, when you click no to that particular prompt, what it does is it only zones in the person that clicked the stone. So if you don't want to have your entire group come along. You see, everybody came through. And if we go over here, click it again, and this time I'm just going to manually click it because I'm only running a single group. Click yes, and everybody's going to come along. So, pretty simple to do that. Well, what other kinds of zones are there? Well, in EverQuest, the most typical zone is just the zone line, that invisible barrier that says, oh, well, here we are, here's a zone, and here's the next zone. So let's go find one of those, shall we? So we're in the Nexus, and I'm going to go over here and find a zone line. And if I remember correctly, you've got Netherbrian layer over here, which will work fine for the purpose of this demonstration. I'm going to pull up my map. The particular map path I'm using does list all of the zone lines, or pretty close to them, usually with a little blue line. So as we can see here, we go up these stairs, we come up here, we're going to be pretty close to a zone line. So let's do a /RTZ, or run through zone. Now, there's a couple of specialty commands I want to introduce at this point. /not and /only. So in this case, let's say I only want my bard to go first. And this is kind of important in a few places, especially with Enduring Breath, just to make sure they zone, because if they crash and you don't have Enduring Breath, well, everyone dies. So let's do a /run to zone. We're going to do only, and we're going to do a vertical line, which is this slash there above the enter key. Just hold down shift and press it. If you hear me say vertical line, that's what I mean. I know there's a technical term for it, but vertical line. And we're going to say only, and then we're going to put bard. This means that any class that is bard will do the command that you've issued there with that first / command. So let's click the button and see what happens. Just going to do a run to zone. Oh, and there goes the bard. All right. Now, for zoning, I like to always leave my main tank behind, because as you get your ini files a little more complicated, sometimes individual characters won't follow your commands. And so let's do an RTZ /not vertical line. And in this case, this character's name is Endry, so I'll put a character name, and everyone else will run, but you note my character did not. And then we can see everybody's zoned. So I'm going to go ahead and run through the zone myself. Now, the not and only have a few different things you can do. You can put any class or any name. You can put melee if you only want your melee to move. You can put, what else? Oh, group. Group is a really important one. If you only want your group to follow the command, doing only group is really cool. Useful for a few other things we'll get into later. All right, so how are we doing here? So we got everybody here. We've seen how to zone that way. We've seen barking. We've seen click for zones. Sometimes you're going to get some really weird situations. Let's see here. Let's run back through this zone real quick. I hope I'm close enough. Oh, yep, I was. By the way, if they don't reach the zone, what they'll do is they will run back to where you started them, and they will attempt it one more time. Useful for expedition zone lines where it's not necessarily the most receptive to the run to zone command. It retries it, I believe, 3 times. And once you've started it, you really can't stop it very easily. So make sure you're close enough to the zone lines when you start it. So let's do a follow on. Have them follow along with me. And let's show one of the more complicated types of zone lines in the game. In this case, we're going to look at a in-the-ground zone line, of which there really aren't a lot of these, but just in case you run into one and you want to figure out, well, how do I want to move around? Well, I'll give you a couple pointers here. So up here, we've got the Shadowhaven zone line. If you were to stand right here and do run to zone, they would say, I can't see the zone line, so it's not going to really work. How about this? Why don't we move everybody over here so they follow me around the platform? I'm going to do a stop. I'm going to walk around the platform here, the opposite end, and I'm going to do a /MTM, or move to me. And, oh, there they go. All right. So we've seen the basic kind of movement types here. Move to me if you want to move people to you. Follow on, which is your most useful and most used one. Stop, your other most used one. We've seen how you use clickit. We've seen the yes and no. We've gone over not. We've gone over only. And we've gone over run to zone. So with that, I think we've gone over most of the normal movement types. There are things like teleports and translocates and all those sorts of things which are done through spellcasting, which I'll get into a little bit later once your characters are kind of high enough level for that to really be a concern. So, next time we're actually going to put some of this information to use. We're going to go through the Glooming Deep introduction trials, and I'll meet you back in Glooming Deep. So, until then, have fun out there and be safe.